Surprise, surprise! Classically Abby has a new video out. This time it is titled, Being Conservative Matters, Fight for Truth, Justice, and the American Way. It is a video of a genre that I think by now is a well-established one, a genre that we could call the conservative persecution complex fetish genre. It is full of all the same bullshit that we have come to expect in works of this genre, and in the same pattern. I will go over that in a tad more detail in just a moment. Hello, Internet. This is Sophia, the Red Angel, and if you like what you see on my channel, then subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment. Make sure the bell icon is active, and share this and other videos of mine with others. Anyway, as I said before the intro, Classically Abby has a new video out titled Being Conservative Matters, Fight for Truth, Justice, and the American Way. And this video is of the now well-established conservative persecution complex fetish genre. This genre is characterized by accusing the elites, liberals, the left of doing all kinds of harm to conservatives and to society at large. However, when you examine it closely, it becomes clear that it is in fact the conservatives who are guilty of those charges. Her load of bull begins at the very start of the video.
Why do we believe in conservatism? Why do we stand up for the American way? Why do we espouse traditional values, even while those around us fight to dispute the most fundamental truths?
No, there is nothing wrong with your galactic translator. If you think that you heard Abby here accuse those who oppose the kind of conservative agenda that she advances of supposedly disputing the most fundamental truth, that this is because she did in fact say that. Now, does she actually demonstrate this accusation? Is it all warranted? No, she most definitely does not.
Being conservative today is not an easy path. You will be faced with every kind of hatred, from minor insults of your intelligence to the doxing of your private information to rioting and violence.
And here the persecution narrative begins. She starts by listing a few hateful behaviors that supposedly, according to her, conservatives are subjected to today. However, who are the people who are really subjected to these hateful behaviors? And are conservatives really on the receiving end, or are they actually on the dishing end of this dynamic? Let us take a look at it. Let us start with a thing about minor insults to your intelligence. By that, I assume you mean people talking to you in a way that assumes that you do not understand certain basic things. Now, granted, sometimes progressives probably do talk to you in a way that makes that assumption, but that is only because there are times when, given the kinds of positions that you support, that is the most charitable assumption that they can make about you. You see, there is this thing called Hanlon's razor, which states, "Never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity." What you see as insults to your intelligence is often just Hanlon's razor at work. For example, if they assume that you do not understand that sexual orientation is not a choice, or that you are not aware that suppressing and or repressing it can cause harm to the individual who does so, maybe they are doing so to give you the benefit of the doubt that you are not the kind of sadistic who would knowingly consign someone to such torture. Or maybe they assume that you don't understand the well-documented fact that Black people are at higher risk of overly aggressive treatment by police than the average person is. But once again, that is because they are giving you credit that you are not the kind of monster who can be fully aware of that and not give a... You know, however, who does get insults to their intelligence all the time, though? Transgender people do. When we explain well-documented things, such as the science of gender identity, we get taken through this kindergarten-level course about X and Y chromosomes and the shape of human reproductive organs. Basically, people are assuming that we do not know the difference between transgender women and cisgender women, or the difference between transgender men and cisgender men. But the truth is, we do know the difference. We are fully cognizant of the often very painful reality. We know the difference between transgender women and cisgender women. Rather, it is you who lacks understanding of the difference between transgender women and cisgender men. Or maybe that is an insult to your intelligence. Maybe you understand perfectly well, but you are just cruel enough to not care. However, if you want me to throw Hanlon's razor out the window where you are concerned, then fine, but take your pick. Are you just ignorant, or are you an evil sociopath? Because let us get one thing clear. If you do not support transgender rights, those are the only two possibilities. By the way, the insults that trans folk suffer to the intelligence is the example that I gave because it is closest to my nerves. However, I have heard other examples of similar insults to the intelligence, as always, never directed against conservatives, but against progressives. For example, plenty of times I have heard proponents of gay rights get lectured on how it is impossible for two people of the same sex to produce an offspring. But the only times that I have heard any insults to the intelligence of conservatives was when the alternative was to assume the worst about their very basic moral integrity. As for the complaint about doxing of the private information of conservatives, well, that certainly seems strange to me. I mean, I know of plenty of cases of conservatives being the ones behind the doxing, most famously the infamous hit list of abortion providers. But as for them being on the receiving end of doxing, I cannot think of anything. As a matter of fact, as far as all of my fellow leftist social justice warriors whose videos I have watched are concerned, there seems to be an overwhelming consensus in our community that this is a community that vehemently condemns doxing, including the doxing of those whom we most strongly oppose. But there is a tendency for conservatives to confuse legitimate acts with doxing. For example, on August the 20th of the year 2018, the Village Voice ran an article on how conservatives took a standard practice of journalists attempting to contact jurors in a trial and twisted it into some sinister doxing effort on behalf of the left. You can find a link to that article in this video's YouTube video description area. But it gets worse than that. In July of this year, that being the year 2020, Tucker Carlson complained that the New York Times was threatening to expose his home address. However, that complaint was complete bullshit that Carlson said for, well, I have no clue why he said it. But a spokesperson for the New York Times said the following, and I quote, "While we do not confirm what we may or may not publish in future editions, the Times has not and does not plan to expose any residents of Tucker Carlson's, which Carlson was aware of before tonight's broadcast, unquote. But hey, the spokesperson here did not insult Carlson's intelligence with Hanlon's razor. No, they said flat out that Carlson not only said something that is not true, but that he actually knew that what he said was not true. If you want to read more about this, I have a link in this video's YouTube description area to an article in the Washington Post about this, though I am afraid that the article is behind a paywall. Anywho, as for the thing about conservatives being the target of so-called rioting and violence, I have no idea what the f*** you are talking about. If you are referring to the recent Black Lives Matter protests, most of those did not get violent until the police showed up and started agitating things. And the looting? By this point, it is well documented that neither targets conservatives nor is caused by liberals. It is by now known to be white supremacists who started all the looting with a specific goal of making the protesters look bad.
America needs conservatives to keep alive what this country stands for, what this country was built on, and the principles that make this country great, even as the mob and the elites will try to tell you that America has no right to exist at all.
I have never once heard anyone on the left claim that America has no right to exist at all. To accuse the left of that is complete bull. On the contrary, what we want is for America to exist for all, rather than just for a privileged few. The only question is here, would you rather I insult your intelligence with Hanlon's razor and assume that your statement is an honest error? Or should I respect your intelligence by throwing Hanlon's razor out the window and just call your statement out as a lie? Take your pick. But since your statement is definitely not true, the only remaining possibilities are that it is either an error or it is a lie.
America needs conservatives to fight for freedom, not as defined by shallow and sinister modern theories, but as developed by our heritage.
Sinister modern theories? Is that what you are calling it when someone listens to the experiences of those who do not fit your narrow mold and tries to find ways that those who previously were left out can share in the American promise of freedom?
America needs conservatives to keep the record straight on our history, to stop those who would rewrite it for their own benefit.
Except that conservatives seem to always be the ones behind those efforts to rewrite American history for their own benefit. Take, for example, the whole notion of America being a nation founded on Christian values. This notion has been thoroughly debunked, a lot. In this video's YouTube description area, you will find a link to an article on the Freedom Forum Institute's website on the matter. Yet conservatives are the ones who keep pushing it over and over and over. Why? Because it serves their agenda of outsourcing government functions to religiously based institutions and their agenda of legislating religious teachings into the laws that bind everyone. Of course, maybe the conservatives are not doing so out of some deliberate, sinister motive. Maybe I should follow Hanlon's razor and consider that perhaps conservatives who peddle the Christian nation bull don't know better and honestly believe it. But nah, that would be insulting to the intelligence of conservatives, and you don't want me to do that. So maybe I won't. But that would leave me with just one possibility remaining, that it is a sinister and manipulative and deliberate effort by conservatives to rewrite American history to further a nefarious conservative agenda. This being just the most blatant example of who truly is behind efforts to rewrite history. So don't give me no bull about conservatives being the ones to stand against the efforts to rewrite history. Your sorry lot are the perpetrators of that atrocity. And don't tell me that I am strawmanning the conservative movement, that it isn't Christian nation, but Judeo-Christian nation, because I know, and unless I am to insult your intelligence, I must assume you know that this is just what they say when they want to seem a little inclusive, but not too inclusive. Make no mistake, Abby. If these conservatives that you have chosen to align yourself with get as much power as they are vying for, make no mistake, they will show up at your door and remind you that you are a kike like me. It may be a harsh term for our people, but when push comes to shove, that is what they really think of us.
America needs conservatives to fight for everyone's right to free speech, because there is no truth when one party can declare its propaganda as fact.
And you know when else there can be no truth? When crazy, unsubstantiated notions that you pull out of your or otherwise make up to suit your agenda is given an equal footing to the fruits of painstaking and systematic research. Research done by people who strive not to find proof that they are right, but any evidence that they are wrong. You know, this thing called science. That said, despite this fact, I do not know of anyone in the liberal sphere, at least not the mainstream liberal sphere, who does not support your right to say whatever you like. What we do not support is such tomfoolery being treated as being equal to science in institutions that are supposed to be about higher learning and pursuit of knowledge. If you want your ideas taken seriously in those places, then by all means submit them to the full battery of scientific rigor, and if your ideas survive that, then they should be what is taught. But spoiler alert, a lot of your conservative ideas have failed that test in round one. Also, we do not believe that the people whose very identities your failed theories are about should have to be bombarded by them all the time when trying to go about our daily lives. You think that we have not been exposed to your crackpot ideas if we don't get harassed by them every time we go out in public? Now who is insulting whose intelligence? Oh, and while we are at it, please try not to cry fire in a crowded theater, unless, of course, there actually is a fire. But aside from such very solidly justifiable limits, such as these, say what you want, to your heart's content. Liberals are not against free speech. On the other hand, if I recall, just the other week I was responding to a video in which you expressed how you believe the producers of WAP should not be allowed to have their artwork out there because you do not approve of it. So apparently your support of freedom of speech for all does not extend to the producers of WAP.
America needs conservatives to return us to the idea of family so that this nation's children have the privilege of a mother and father within the home.
Yes, it is tragic when a child from a minority community does not have both parents at home because one of them has been incarcerated by a criminal justice system that disproportionately sentences people of color, or has been summarily executed by the police without the benefit of a trial, something that also disproportionately happens to people of African descent in this country. But we both know that that is not what you are talking about. You are making a jab against same-sex couples. And true, same-sex couples are not able to produce their own offspring, but what they can do just as well as opposite-sex couples is to provide a loving home for a child produced by another couple who cannot or will not raise that child themselves. You know, like the children of unwanted pregnancies that you do not want to see aborted, that you talked so much about in the last video of yours that I responded to, those kids. But I have to assume that you know that, because if I assumed that you did not think about it, that would be insulting to your intelligence. And since you have stated that that is such a hateful thing to do, I will not do that to you. But that means that I must conclude that you knowingly would deprive such a child of any loving home to go to if there are not enough heterosexual couples to take that child in.
And in the absence of a real-life Superman, we are the warriors of truth, justice, and the American way.
Do not kid yourself. You guys are not the Superman in this scenario. You are the Lex Luthors, or maybe considering the likely common origin of our family trees with the rabbis of Speyer, I could say that you are the General Zod to my Superman. But make no mistake, conservatives are not the defenders of freedom, unless by that freedom you mean the freedom to oppress others. Conservatives do not get to throw the term social justice warrior around like it is supposed to be somehow an insult and then claim themselves to be the warriors of truth, justice, and the American way. Both terms are an honor reserved for those who stand against such nefarious agenda. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please hit the thumbs up button and leave your comment in the comments area below. Make sure that you are subscribed to this channel and that the bell icon is active so as to increase the chance that you receive notifications when I upload new videos to this channel in the future. Share this video with your friends and everyone else, whether by social media or by whatever other means. And until next time, see ya!